Good afternoon. Just going to give it a couple of moments to let people arrive. Nice to see those of you who are here. Just take a few moments as people slowly make their way through. Well, the tech allows everybody to make their way through. We'll get started very, very shortly. I hope you are all well. We'll get started in about 30 seconds. Thank you, Valerie. Great to have you with us. And I'm glad you can hear me, which is wonderful. Great stuff. Okay, lovely, lovely people. Let us begin because your time is precious. And there's a lot to get through. Oh, lovely to have you with us, Emily. So the way these safeguarding briefings work is there a highlight, a high-level look at what has been happening in the world of child protection and safeguarding, so that you can have an overview of what is going on. They last about 25 minutes, depends how carried away or not I get when we are talking about some of the issues which have arisen. They are run every 6 weeks. So if you're part of my mailing list, you will automatically be invited to the next safeguarding briefing. If you know somebody who you think would benefit from joining us on our next safeguarding briefing, then please feel free to share the link with them if they are happy for you to do so. Let us get started then. So welcome to today's safeguarding briefing. My name is Kate Young, and I am the founder and CEO of the Safeguarding Association. As far as today's short session goes, make sure you're somewhere quiet, make sure that you're unlikely to be interrupted, and also think about who's around you. Not everybody will want to hear some of the things we are going to talk about. If you do have a question, one of the benefits of being live at these briefings is you can ask a question. So to do that, you can either use the chat function, which several of you have already found, or you can use the Q&A function as well. These questions are exclusively open for those who join us live. So if you're watching on the replay, you won't be able to do that, but make sure you put the dates in your diary and get yourself on our mailing list so you don't miss out the opportunity to come and join us for our next session. So like I said, my name is Kate Young. I am the founder and CEO of the Safeguarding Association. I have about 20 years legal experience. I don't practice anymore, but I do work with local authorities to help them with their policy, their training, their development around, particularly around the 16+ age range. And the Safeguarding Association actually specialises in working with those organisations who work with 15+, and particularly FE, HEIs, and lots of apprenticeship providers at the moment. I seem to be being sought out from. So if you're working with those that age range and you think, actually, don't really know what on earth is going on here, because it's a delightfully grey area, which is part of the reason I love it. Go figure. But do get in touch. So then, what on earth has been happening over the last few weeks and months? Well, there's been quite a lot that has been going on. We've had some major pieces of legislation, which I'll mention shortly. We've had some updated guidance that has been released. Hurrah! Lots of you will be preparing for the new academic year. Some of you may be in the throes of preparing for Ofsted. I know I've done a number of safeguarding reviews/audits over the last few months for those colleges FEs, HEIs, where the chances of Ofsted coming in are quite high. Now, I will say about my safeguarding reviews and audits, I don't really care about Ofsted. I know it's important, I know it's important, I know it's important. However, for me, going in to look at your safeguarding practices, I am much more concerned with how safe your students are on a day-to-day basis than you meeting the necessary criteria for Ofsted. Now, don't get me wrong, meeting the criteria for Ofsted is massively going to help with that, but it includes things like knowing what on earth has been going on and what issues are affecting your students. So as we're going through this, also think about your age range and your demographic. So where are your students coming from? What are some of the issues affecting them? And are some of the things we're talking about today going to affect your students because of all of that history, that local issue element that is occurring? So in terms of guidance, it's that time of year again, folks. We have the new draft Keeping Children Safe in Education out. It has been published. The document came out last week before. There are some big changes within it. Nothing like we saw in 2018. But there are some changes to be aware of around the single central record, around child-on-child sexual violence, some language changes as well that you will need to note. Also to make sure that your policies and procedures accurately reflect what is going on and what you need to comply with. Remember that the 2021 guidance is still in force until September 2022. So this draft guidance is just that. It's not yet in force, but it's there to help you prepare for the new academic year and to make sure that you've got time between now and September to make any changes that you need to do to not only your policy or policies, but also some of your procedures as well. Safeguarding Leaders Hub members, I will be running probably a half-day workshop with you, probably in August, to go through what those changes are, and we'll have a workshop day to look at what your policies and procedures need to be considering. That is exclusively for Safeguarding Leaders Hub members, I'm afraid. But have a look at, if you want to come join us, you are more than welcome to. But do make sure you look at the Keeping Children Safe in Education guidance. It is your absolute Bible. And it's your Bible as well, even if you don't work in education. If you are here from a charity, if you're here from a sports club or from a religious group, think about how this document can help you with your processes and procedures. For me, it's absolutely the go-to document. Yes, we've got working together to safeguard children, which we all have to comply with. But I do think Keeping Children Safe in Education is a brilliant document upon which to build your foundations, because it gives you so much information and can really help you if you're thinking about some governance structures, what information needs to be shared. And in fact, for those of you who are working with over 18s, this is probably the best guidance yet, because it does make the distinction between those working with under 18s and those who are caught because they're 16 to 19 provision and what happens for that over 18 age range. So definitely, probably the most pragmatic document there has been for everybody working with that age range that straddles the child and young adult age range. We've had some more Domestic Abuse Act statutory guidance published. Do make sure you check that out in relation to what is now in force. So make sure you're aware of what that means, particularly if you are working with victims. Very useful there. Also, if you happen to be working with perpetrators and they're looking to use the defence of the strangulation defences, they've gone. So make sure you're aware of what that guidance is now brought into the fore. There was a pilot started last year around rape victims providing pre-recorded evidence in court. It seems to be going quite well. So what has happened is that pilot has been extended to a number of other court arenas. Why that's important is our rape numbers in the UK are through the floor. We really need to find a way to better improve the number of cases that are being brought to court, never mind the number of convictions that are happening. Hopefully, with the changes to the Domestic Abuse Act now being in force and this extension, we will start to see an improvement in the number of cases being brought to court, and certainly looking at hopefully a better number of convictions. I won't sugarcoat this, it is difficult and complex in terms of this particular area of law. And I know for those of you who are working within the education sector, this is particularly difficult when you have to marry that up with the guidance on child sexual violence and harassment under Part 5 of Keeping Children Safe in Education. And again, that has been made beefier effectively because they've moved some of the documentation, some of the information around in Part 5. It is a really tough area, a really, really tough area. But if you are working with victims, it's useful to know if your court has been included as part of that pilot. And there's a good half dozen or so who have been included in the extension of that pilot. So what's been going on other than those updates to guidance? Well, we have had a bumper crop of legal updates. The world of child protection and safeguarding, and adult safeguarding, I include in all of that, doesn't change significantly very quickly. The changes that happen are usually hard fought and can take years for things to happen. That's sort of what's happened here, but we've got them all in one go. So on the 28th of April, 2022, these 5 pieces of legislation became law. They each have an impact on the work that you will do with vulnerable people. Now, I use that phrase specifically because this will straddle under 18 and over 18 as well. I am not going to go into detail on any of these in today's session, and I'm doing that deliberately because on the 9th of June at 6 o'clock, I am running, 9th of June 2022, for anybody who might be watching this years in the future, I am running a free webinar on the 9th of June 2022 at 6 o'clock, looking at each of these new pieces of legislation and what they mean for safeguarding practitioners. There's a lot in these, so we're going to go through them on the 9th of June. If you would like to join, take a snapshot of this screen and follow the link that is there. I will be sending this link out again, so if you're on my mailing list, you will get this link. If you're part of my free Facebook group, you will find this link in there as well. But this is what I'm doing. So 6 p.m, 9th of June, 2022, we will work together and I'll be sharing updates and what it means for practice from each of those different pieces of legislation. So put that date in your diary. If for whatever reason you can't find the link or the link doesn't work, it should do, send me a message and I will make sure the link comes through to you. Okay, 2 other big things have happened in the last few weeks. It cannot have escaped your attention that the National Child Protection Review following the death of Arthur and of Star has happened and has concluded. Massive piece of work done there. And also the independent review into social care has finished and has been published at the same time. So let's take each of these in turn. There's no real polite way to say this, but the reality is, whilst the language may be different, and I do not wish to take away from the utter tragedy of the deaths of these two little children. And the same goes for everybody else who has been killed and significantly harmed by those who were meant to love and protect them. What it frustrates me no end is that nothing in this review is going to surprise you. Nothing. It's an issue that I have been talking about for years. They are issues that have been raised with me by safeguarding leads up and down the country. Nothing at all surprises me. And that saddens me so much. Big issues that come out of it. We've got fragmented and fractured multi-agency arrangements. Well, no, Sherlock. We've been saying this for years. I know that early help services and family support services that are available in one area don't exist in another. I know that really great practitioners exist all over, but they are stretched so flipping thin, it's ridiculous, to the point where the most of them leave the profession and leave working with young people who are really vulnerable because, frankly, they can't cope with the amount of work and the amount of utter just crap that is dumped on them. So, yes, there is insufficient investment. There's insufficient kind of, I guess, credit and kudos placed on those who are bloody good at what they do and who work really, really flipping hard to try and protect young people from abuse and neglect. Those who try to do it in a really child-centered way. I mean, just the other day, I was reading in a Facebook group I'm part of, where somebody had said that they had written a report which was really trying to make it child-centered, but recognise the work that mum had done, recognise the support that was being given to her, but that mum, for reasons that are very specific to that case, is just not in a position to provide the best care for her child. So has accepted that and has agreed that somebody within the family should have a special guardianship order. Her comment thereafter was this had gone to her line manager, who had butchered it, her words, not mine, and had basically taken out all the good about the mother and had made it as if she was the world's worst person in the world. Now, I'm taking this from a Facebook post. Let's be really clear about that. But that doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't surprise me. And I know that you have to have good quality evidence. I get that. But one of the things that really, really annoyed me as a practitioner was that parents weren't necessarily given credit, or they were given so much flipping credit. There very rarely seemed to be a happy balance. And those that could do it were then given all the really crappy cases because nobody else could manage them. So this laugh does not surprise me. It just really, really hacks me off that we lose amazing professionals and amazing practitioners because we just dump crap on their shoulders, frankly. Rant over, back to updates. So again, nothing new in terms of some of the big headlines around the review. Issues hindering professionals, lack of sharing information within and between agencies. I have lost count of the number of conversations I've had with people about why on earth can't we just have one system? Why does the NHS have to have its own 7 or 8 different systems? Why are there different systems within the police? Why are there different systems within local authorities? Why are there different systems within safeguarding partnerships? Why are there different systems within schools? Why does one system not talk to the other system? Why is this so flipping hard to do? So lack of sharing information has been around for donkey's years. And in fact, in every single serious case review before they were changed to learning reviews, this was an issue. This has always been an issue and we've never nailed it. We have never sorted this issue out at all. What I did think was interesting was that it had been noted that there was problems within agencies sharing information. We've always had the issue between agencies, but the fact that it's within and it's been highlighted within, I think is really important. Lack of critical thinking and challenge within and between agencies, again, goes back to my point before. Who are you inviting? Who's got the case? Who's managing the case? Do they know what they're doing? Do they understand who the family is? Do they know who the family is? Have they been given sufficient time to learn the family, to meet the family, to talk to the family, to discover who the family is? What makes them tick? What are some of the issues? Absolutely, Valerie. I have no idea why this is never addressed. No idea why it's never addressed at all. We talk about it, and then nothing seems to bloody happen. Drives me crackers. That lack of, the other thing as well is what I have become increasingly aware of over the last, well, probably nearly 10 years, if not longer, is that there has been a nosedive in the ability of professionals to be given scope to critically think about what is going on and to challenge respectfully. What I see happen is that people take it personally, and I've seen it at all sorts of multi-agency meetings where professionals are sharing their views and their opinions, and if somebody agrees as another professional, there's a complete taking it personally issue that happens. And we seem to have lost the ability to have an honest and open discussion without anybody being affronted or anybody being upset that their view has been challenged. And actually, for me, that's really, really important, that we understand that our views are going to be challenged, that we are going to be critiqued, that people are going to say, well, where's that from? Where's that from? Where's that from? Which is why knowing where your information from, valuing your sources, whether it's teachers, whether it's sports coaches, whether it's come from the family themselves, is really important. And our record keeping is really, really crucial. Better and more specialist child protection skills. Yes. Can we have somebody in management who is more than 3 years qualified? And again, I don't want to take this away from anybody at all, because equally there are amazing practitioners with very little actual PQE, so post-qualification experience, because they've had oodles of it in the run up to it before they got qualified. Others are very green around the gills. When I first started in child protection, like I say, far too many years ago, you were hard pushed to find a manager at any level. So whether we're talking school, whether we're talking within social care, whether we're talking within health or police, who was not at least 7 years qualified. They were really, really well experienced, had done a lot of work, were very, very good at their job, but also really good at the kind of critical thinking stuff. And that slowly disappeared. We've got younger and younger staff. Again, nothing at all wrong with that. Please don't misunderstand me. But it's incredibly difficult when you've not got that experience, you've not got the life experience behind you to really understand how these various types of harm, how the various issues around neglect can manifest, because it isn't the same. And one of the things I'm really passionate about within the association, within our Leaders Hub, is that we make sure that staff who are working with various age ranges get the right knowledge and support. There is no point staff having training around what child protection, what types of harm look like, how it manifests in 0 to 5-year-olds when they're working with 18 to 20-year-olds. It just doesn't make sense at all. So needing to understand what that looks like, I totally get. I think that's actually a really important area that's been highlighted. And again, for leaders to better and more positively impact practices, it's a bit bigger than that. I've absolutely paraphrased here quite heavily. Yes, Emily, I do. You and I need to have a conversation because HE is a completely different beast, completely different beast. So yes, let's have a conversation, Emily. Email me and we'll have a conversation. How do you impact practice? If you haven't been given the skills, if you haven't been given the, I suppose, the permission to some extent to impact, to lead, to help and support, and you're stuck in a very rigid set of I must do this, I must do that, you're going to struggle there, really struggle. And again, one of the things that happens, literally this afternoon, I've had a conversation with a Leaders Hub member who is having all sorts of stuff dumped on their shoulders. And part of my role with them, it is just helping them see the wood for the trees. And actually the conversation has ended with her going to talk to her line manager in governance about, look, what does this look like and where does my role start and finish? Because frankly, I don't think it starts here, which is where they think it starts. So that empowerment, leaders have to be empowered in order to empower those that they are leading, is the way that, for me, that needs to happen. So we'll see. We will see. My fear, if I'm being really honest, is that this is a whole load of bluff and bluster yet again. Like nothing's new. Nothing here should surprise anybody at all. We'll end up with a major centre set up that will cost billions to run. And in 5 years' time, it'll all come crashing down again. And oh, lo and behold, nothing has been changed. It drives me up the wall, as you've probably gathered. Okay, so what about the independent review into social care practice? Well, nothing new in that either. There is a really good summary, actually, and I will share it as a link for people in an upcoming email. There is a short guide produced by the NSPCC around what this means. So for those of you who are interested, have a look at it. The thing was, talk about something that is the school of the bleeding obvious. Let's include schools as a statutory safeguarding partner. I to this day do not understand why education was not seen as a statutory partner. I suspect that what has happened is somebody somewhere has forgotten that schools are no longer, or not all schools, were under the remit of local authorities, and there was an active and ongoing fairly vigorous campaign by government to have all schools as academies by the turn of the decade. So I suspect there was a little bit of, oops, we forgot about them and we don't quite know how this fits. And I agree, Diane, they are absolutely different. This does say schools. My suggestion to any of you who work in education at large is get on their mailing lists for your local safeguarding partnership. If they are having any gatherings, make sure you are going and move hell and high water to have your voice heard as much as you possibly can. I work with a number of FEs and they're massive FEs who basically, one in particular, ends up with a whole host of students on EHCP. Not a problem. However, the partnership was making changes left, right and centre about what that would mean for the sector without them actually being consulted. So we work together and they've basically elbowed their way onto the relevant board. So sometimes you have to be a bit pointy elbowed to get yourself in. But yes, make sure you're on the relevant mailing lists. And I can't tell you what they'll be because they're different for every safeguarding partnership. And this is another thing that infuriates me is you talk about having a national practice and yet not 5 years ago, we went to a much more localised practice under safeguarding partnerships. And I remember at the time saying, this worries me because I think we're going to end up in a pre-Victoria Columbia era where everybody's doing things very differently and nobody out of borough or area knows what the other one looks like. And sadly, I fear that my prediction has come true. But yeah, make sure you've got pointy elbows and get yourself onto the relevant boards and mailing lists for your local area. It's a 5-year plan of reform. Something like 2.6 billion is being invested, again, looking at a national model. I don't know. I think there's a huge amount that needs to happen here. And it isn't just on social care. There's a huge amount around respect within the judiciary, respect within the legal communities, around how students are educated. There was talk of extending the ASYE year, so that's their first year, into 5 years. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but that makes it more like an apprenticeship than it does an education process. And if you have to do that over 5 years, what on earth is going on within the degrees that they'll have been doing for 3 years? Lots and lots of thought needs to go into this. And again, I fear we are going to have a knee-jerk reaction to this, because it all seems to have hit as a bit of a perfect storm. And I will say this now, lovely people, we are facing a general election in 2 years' time. Quite how far this goes by then, I have no idea. I'd like to think that significant progress, appropriate progress, was made. But if it isn't going to suit the political agenda in a couple of years, then we all know what is going to happen with that. Okay, so that is in a nutshell what has been going on in the last few months. There's an awful lot out there. The review into the national review is 133 pages long. The review into social care isn't much shorter. So they are substantial pieces of work that have been done. If you are looking at training, I do have my last open course of the summer is on the 20th and 21st of July, which is a 2-day designated safeguarding lead initial training. It is aimed at those working with 16 plus. So if that is you and you want to come along, there are spaces left. So you can either book via our website or email me and I can invoice you. That isn't a problem at all. Looking ahead to the new academic year, Safeguarding Those Aged 16 to 24 is a 1-day course which is aimed, basically basic safeguarding awareness, but for higher education and FEs and those working with that age range. So putting that into practice and basically looking at, well, we're looking at the second most vulnerable group of young people. What does safeguarding need to look like for them? And what are some of the issues that affect that age range? And I am pleased to say that our Safeguarding Leaders Hub is accepting new members. So if you are work for an organisation and you are looking for some one-to-one support, you are looking for a place to safely ask questions, to have some quasi-supervision mentorship, some ongoing training and support. Like I say, we're doing the half-day workshop in August. It will be for keeping children safe in education, and particularly how that applies to those working with 16 to 24 plus. I've got an organisation that's just joining us who their youngest learner is 28, but they need some support around how they implement safeguarding. If this is something you want to learn more about, then send me an email. Let's have a conversation and see if this is right for you. Otherwise, lovely people, thank you very much. I will be in your inboxes, probably not this week, maybe next week, with the link to the replay and with all of the links for the documents that I've shared today in the briefing. And I do hope you have a lovely Jubilee weekend. I'm off to take my folks to see the beacon being lit in our local area, and then I might just have to go for a sneaky glass of wine in our local once that has been done. So have a lovely, lovely bank holiday, everybody. I'll see you shortly. Take care.